Good afternoon. I welcome the Government Press Office and all media houses joining us this afternoon. I acknowledge Chief Meteorologist Ronald Gordon, National Emergency Coordinator Daniel Mendes, and Principal Hydrologist Tanil Hendy. I am Kennedy Carrillo, CEO for the Ministry of Disaster Risk Management. The purpose of this first joint press briefing is to update the nation on the present position of Hurricane Beryl and its possible impact on our country, Belize. The Ministry of Blue Economy and Disaster Risk Management is prioritizing sharing of timely and official information as a key element of our hurricane preparedness plan as a country. For this reason, today's press briefing will be followed by daily virtual hurricane updates at 7:30 a.m. with NEMO and the Met Service starting tomorrow morning via the press office. We invite all media houses to tune in with any questions and to share the important updates at that time. The order of the presentations this afternoon are as follows. We will start with Met Chief Ronald Gordon and our National Emergency Coordinator Daniel Mendes, and the question and answer segment will follow. Proceed.
Good afternoon, CEO. Good afternoon, Mr. Mendes. Good afternoon, members of the press. So our update as of midday on potentially catastrophic major hurricane Beryl was that it was moving west-northwestward at 20 miles per hour away from the Windward Islands after having affected those islands this morning. The projected forecast for this hurricane is for it to move on a west-northwestward track across the southeastern Caribbean Sea for the remainder of the day, Tuesday, enter the central Caribbean Sea just south of Jamaica around Wednesday, and then move into the northwestern Caribbean Sea on Thursday. It is currently a Category 4 hurricane, almost at the strength of a Category 5 with 150 miles per hour. The forecast calls for it to weaken as it enters the central Caribbean Sea because it is forecast to encounter some wind shear, which will disrupt its development and result in weakening, and that's the official forecast. In terms of the projected path, the system currently is moving, as I said, west-northwestward. It will encounter a high-pressure ridge at some point that will develop over the Gulf of Mexico, forcing a more westward track. Just to make it simple for the public, a ridge is like a mountain. The hurricane cannot move over a mountain. It tries to move around it. So that ridge will be blocking the system from moving farther northward and push it more on a westerly track after it moves near Jamaica. Now, there is still a lot of uncertainty. This is a 4 to 5 day prediction that carries a lot of uncertainty. As you can see from the projected cone, there is a hashed area near Belize indicating that there is a high level of uncertainty of where the system will be. However, the projected cone shows it anywhere from southern Belize, let's say from around the Stann Creek district, up to the northern Yucatan Peninsula. That means the center of the hurricane could be anywhere within that cone at that particular time, which is Friday morning. Intensity is also difficult to predict. The forecast is for it to weaken to a Category 1 hurricane, more or less, by the time it reaches our area. However, we do know that intensity forecasts can be very problematic. And looking at the situation, the wind shear is not that strong. So we do caution our residents to be aware and to do not take it lightly, to be very prepared for the system. In terms of possible impacts, we cannot say precisely at the moment, given the level of uncertainty. But certainly, if the system moves within the projected path, we will likely experience some impact from the system, including strong winds and heavy rainfall, which we'll be able to fine-tune as the week goes on, as we get more information. I want to remind the public that the forecast models are updated every 6 hours, and they are done so for a precise reason. There is new information coming in every 6 hours, updating these models. So you will see the track shift from time to time, and that's because of new information. So we need to monitor the situation very carefully at this moment and be prepared if we need to take action. If I miss anything, I'm sure the members of the media will ask me, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chief, for that update. So I just want to give you an update of what we at NEMO have been doing. All district committees have met today across the country. These include even on San Pedro and Keycocker. As of tomorrow morning, as of 9 a.m., NEMO itself will be activated. We are meeting, all of the NEMO operational committees will be meeting starting tomorrow in order for us to start to develop and to update and implement the plans that are necessary for the arrival of this storm. We will continue to do preparations across the country. We are ensuring that stocks at our warehouses are updated and that we are preparing for the arrival of this sometime on Friday. We continue to encourage the public to prepare. We highly encourage people who are living in low-lying areas or areas that are flood-prone to consider early evacuation, to start moving in advance as this develops. As the chief meteorologist had said, there's a large area of uncertainty, but we cannot wait until it's too late. And so we encourage early preparation get these things done as soon as possible. So for your own businesses, for your families, start to make those preparations in advance. Start to get your things, start to implement those plans. And if you don't have a plan, you need to start doing this as soon as possible. We are prepared across the country. As the days go by, we will know more with more certainty where this hurricane will be impacting, and then we'll be able to provide more and more precise information and updates as the days continue. Thank you.
Okay, now we invite the press for any questions.
Yes, let me start. I'm looking at the projection. This is to Mr. Mendes. I'm noticing that the intelligence is in the home. Manpower. What's the plan for NEMO?
Okay, so as you know, NEMO is the entire government service. And so in terms of manpower, we will be mobilizing as necessary. This includes all public officers, all Coast Guard, all BDF, and including volunteers. And so whoever we need, we will be getting that manpower wherever it is needed in the country.
Good afternoon, Jules Vasquez from Channel 7 News. For Chief Met Officer, obviously high level of variability and unpredictability. Cone is from pretty much Cancun to Dangrida, it seems. But if the consensus track between the model seems to be, and again it's just a model, seems to be that it's making landfall in Chetumal or just north of Chetumal, maybe like Mahakwal. That's what I saw this morning. If that were to happen, where is the strongest concentration of winds and water for the storm? Is it north, northeast, or south?
You're leading me to precisely what we don't want to do, no? To identify particular areas where it may make landfall. I know that, as you rightly mentioned, that's where the models are clustered, but we do know that there is uncertainty. But I will entertain the hypothetical question that you presented, and if indeed the system makes landfall in that area, of course the stronger winds, storm surge and so forth will be to the north of that area. Again, I must repeat, that is a big if. There is uncertainty. We have seen that the forecast track has shifted several times during the past at least past 24 hours. At one point, it was showing more the northern portions of Yucatan. Then it shifted south to include Belize once more. And that fluctuation indicates uncertainty. The models are not resolving the steering flow properly. So there is a high level of uncertainty. So we cannot precisely say where it will make landfall at this time. And I want to add one last thing to that, is that even if the system makes landfall north of Belize, we will be impacted by rainfall, at least.
Okay, now, are you able to say, obviously, it has been an uncharacteristic storm historic storm and everywhere, and that's why the models, if they are of use at all, are constantly confounded, because there's no history for a storm in June like this, or very, very little history. This rapid intensification, which made it into a category 4 storm so quickly, it is fueled obviously by warm waters. Where are we with I know that the sea is warmer than ever, but where are we with that in the central Caribbean area, and how much of a accelerant might that be?
The entire Atlantic and Caribbean basin are supercharged with hot water. So we have looked at the figures were about 2, sometimes up to almost 3 degrees Celsius above normal in terms of temperature. And like you rightly said, that is the energy that these systems need to fuel them. And that is precisely why the system was able to intensify so rapidly. And to add to that, of course, the prediction was going for an above average season. And as you rightly mentioned, this hurricane is unprecedented in the fact that it is the first category 4 hurricane in history, in recorded history for the month of June. So certainly it is uncharted waters in terms of that area.
What is the earliest possible time that we will be able to confirm any sort of landfall in Belize?
We are looking at every single update. I cannot precisely say when, but we do know that the closer we get to Friday, the more certain we are going to be if there is certain to know if there will be landfall on the country. We are projected that by tomorrow afternoon, with the update that comes out at 3 p.m., we will have an idea if Belize will be directly impacted by the system or whether or not it will not be impacted directly.
Are you able to play out perhaps the best case and worst case scenario for Belize where the system is concerned?
I think, of course, the best case scenario is that it goes through the Yucatan Channel and doesn't affect anybody at all on the Yucatan Peninsula. Certainly, that would be the best case. The worst case, of course, is that it comes directly into the country as a category 2 or 3 hurricane, and that would be the worst case scenario.
In terms of the tropical storm winds, how much advanced places like San Pedro, Kikop would have for impact? What is the window for them?
Mr. Mendes probably could help us in that question a bit more than myself, but I do know that we are looking at possible impacts by as early as Thursday night. So if there is any evacuation of the islands, it would likely have to occur at least by Wednesday, I would believe.
What's the possibility that Beryl will be brought down to a tropical storm with the wind shears that you're saying in the Caribbean Sea?
There is always a small chance that could occur. We do know that it is going to encounter some wind shear, but like I said before, we do not expect that wind shear to be strong enough to bring it down to that level.
What do you tell the entire population of Belize right now as it relates to preparedness? Because I think over the weekend, everyone up north may already be rushing to the stores, but probably not in Belize City and in the southern parts of the country.
I will leave that too.
In terms of preparedness, like we've been, our message has been consistently since June, since May, you need to have a plan, you need to start preparing. And so while we can't tell you to go out and start to purchase, what we can tell you is that ensure you have a plan, you know where to go. Again, with this great degree of uncertainty for us to say, yes, you need to go and purchase these things, that you need to go stock up, I think it would be too early to say. I will say, however, that you must know what to do, you must know where to go, and you must have some sort of plan, and you cannot wait until the last minute. We do have a few days more before the arrival of this, and so we do have to start taking those measures individually, personally, within your business, and within your all organizations.
What about public officers for shelters and whatnot?
This again is part of the NEMO system, and so when we do activation, all of these plans will be created, and then people will start to be assigned as necessary based on the information that will be available in the next few days.
Are you able to say, sir, what is the level of preparedness of the shelters? I haven't seen a shelters list. Maybe I missed it, but I know none has been officially sent out. and I know that historically we don't get hurricanes at this level in June, maybe August and thereafter. So are the shelters ready? Is the list ready? And what's the state of general preparedness?
Yes, the shelter list is on our NEMO Facebook page and our website as well. You can download it from there. The shelters we have inspected all of those shelters. You will find that there's a Category 1, Category 2 list. And so depending on the intensity of the storm, we will be opening those shelters as necessary. And so we will be, through your district the district offices, you will be provided information as to which shelter will be open and when those will be opened.
If the north is the area that's impacted most for Belize, what can you tell us in terms of rainfall that's already accumulated from the rains over the weekend as well?
Certainly, the soils are very saturated. We had excessive rainfall occurring, especially on Saturday up north. We have stations, we have several weather stations, as you know, across the country reporting in real time. We had up to, I believe, 12 inches of rainfall in some locations within a very short period of time. So certainly, and then we had an event before that. So we do know that our soils are extremely saturated, and certainly with additional rainfall, that could lead to flooding. We don't have the hydrologists here with us at the moment, but certainly that would lead to flooding in the case that we have excessive rainfall along with the system coming in.
Was 12 inches the maximum projected for the system this weekend?
The models were suggesting 4 to 6 inches, but we always emphasize that model projections are estimates and that there could always be locally higher values.
Okay, and then we know, Chief, that when these systems come in contact with land and mountainous areas in particular, they start to act in a different way. We know that this is forecast, not predicted, forecast to graze Hispaniola and Jamaica, which we know are both areas with mountainous sectors. What effect, if any, might this have? And second question, or 2B, why did you specify that as of 3 p.m. tomorrow, we will have a clearer idea of what lies ahead? Why that particular cutoff time?
Thanks for the question, Jules. In regards to the impacts from those islands, from what I have seen in terms of the projected path, it will not come near enough to Hispaniola for it to have a significant impact on the system. And Jamaica is relatively small, so to speak, and the system will be moving south of Jamaica according to the forecast. So we do not anticipate terrain to have a significant impact on the weakening of the storm. Again, that forecasted weakening has more to do with the projected increase in vertical wind shear. In terms of the cutoff time, I was very subjective, I'll be honest with you. We are looking at additional information. What I usually do is look at least 4 consecutive model runs, and if they are consistent in their forecasts, then we would tend to be more confident that that forecast is going to materialize. So when I use 3 p.m., I'm already doing the math in my head that if I see 4 more consecutive updates coming out and it's showing me specifically that, then of course we believe that the models are converging on that solution, and that's what's going to happen.
What's the chances of this system tracking farther south? And I know there's a great deal of uncertainty, but there's also this characteristic of wobbling that these systems tend to have. And given the projected path at this point, it seems as if a bit of wobble could take it farther south to perhaps make landfall in northern Belize. Do we have anything so far in that possibility?
Well, as I said before, you look at the forecasted cone, and northern Belize is included. So of course there's a chance. So the question is that yes? The answer to that question is yes. There is a chance that it will affect northern Belize.
In terms of landfall, where the eye is concerned, that's what I'm looking at.
I think you are still focusing on that center of that cone. That's the problem. Please, let's remind the public that the center of that hurricane can be anywhere within that cone, right? It doesn't mean that because you have a cone, it has to be at the center of that cone. That cone is telling you that in that whole area, there's a chance that the center of the hurricane could be there at that time?
I read in the, I'm aware of the little knowledge in the handle of but and that's why I'm asking. In the discussion on the National Hurricane Center this morning, I think it was at 6 a.m., they said that the most notable change in the long-range guidance is that the bulk of the models is showing a stronger ridge over the Gulf of Mexico, which keeps Beryl considerably further south in those solutions. Then he said, this is a big change. I don't want to bite on that evolution just yet, right? But is that something that you are aware of, that this ridge may be more, have a greater effect than expected?
Yes, Jules. And yes, we do know that the Hurricane Center forecast discussion is out there for the public, for everybody to read. And as I did mention, that high pressure ridge is what we expected to steer it a bit more to the west when it enters the northwestern Caribbean Sea. So like I said, the ridge is like a mountain. The hurricane cannot go over it. It tends to want to go around it. And that's what precisely will be bringing it more in towards our area. They did indicate a southward shift in the model consensus, but by this afternoon and the latest figure I saw, the models are again shifting to the north. And that's precisely why I say at this long range, we have a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fluctuations in what the model does. We want to see some consistent model solutions before we can precisely say it's going to affect any particular area.
Please allow me to welcome Mr. Neil Hendy, our principal hydrologist, to take your questions.
Good afternoon. Yes, you caught me, Jules.
Great, I'm glad to meet you. If I could, so what I did read today's flooding update, but what is the state of the rivers, and what is their margin of, I guess you would call it infraction, like how close to be overrun are which rivers?
Okay, so just to update you, the forecast for the north is still for flooding conditions to prevail. That is caused mainly by the excessive rainfall that we've received over the past couple weeks. We're not seeing any riverine flooding, which is different from precipitation-related flooding. But there is the possibility that we do get riverine flooding from our neighbors, Guatemala and Mexico having floods, as we've seen with Chetumal. The same time Chetumal was flooding, Belize in the north was also flooding. But more recently, the flooding that we're seeing in San Roman, San Pedro up in the north, Progreso, it's based on excessive rainfall. And so that is termed urban flooding. With any additional rainfall that we can get, I would say with a minimum of 6 inches more, we can see a combination of excessive rainfall coupled with riverine flooding. And so you might be saying, well, you're using a lot of words. What does this mean? It just means we will have flooding conditions for longer periods, because what we call localized flooding from excessive rainfall, that water eventually runs off into the rivers. But if the rivers are full, where is it going to go? And then we also have to factor in tidal events. When there's a high tide, the water basically remains stagnant, or it starts to fan out or spread out. And in areas that are not prone to flooding before, they now become flooded. So there are a lot of factors that we need to consider in terms of flooding, and that's why we work very closely with the Met Service and with NEMO. And ourselves, we have to monitor the models as well that the Met Service uses for our flood forecast.
So is it of particular concern that many of the models, or most of them, show that it may be making landfall closer to northern Belize? Is that of greater concern with the level of rainfall inundation?
Yes, it is definitely a concern. Those rivers in the north are very flat. For flood waters to run off, we need slope, we need steepness, and we don't have that in neither the Rio Hondo nor the New River. what releases those waters is the Crooked Tree Lagoon. It has a reverse function. Right now, the Belize River is not flooding. So what the Crooked Tree Lagoon does is that the excess river water coming from New River, it's actually emptying into Crooked Tree, and then it makes its way through the Belize River. So that particular system is very critical to flood drainage for us. And so eventually, if the hurricane takes a projected path that it has now and it continues on that path, we might be looking at the Crooked Tree system being flooded because it's releasing those water and eventually going through the Belize River, eventually coming down into Belize City. There's a lot of factors. It's too early, a lot of uncertainty, but there is the high possibility and potential, and so that's what we need to take away from it, that there is the high probability and potential, and we need to be prepared for that.
Are there any areas where the soil is saturated that would be more prone to flooding?
Right now, the entire north and part of central Belize, the soil moisture is very saturated. So there's not a lot of room to play for any waters to infiltrate through the soils. They're at capacity. They've taken all that they can take. And so what happens is that turns into runoff, it leads into flooding, and eventually goes to the river. So we have to be monitoring soil moisture, precipitation levels, tidal levels, flooding coming from neighboring countries, and it's a very unique complex. I like to say these algebraic and calculus equations that we took in high school or in UB, and we said, what are we going to do with this? This is what we have to do with them. We have to look at all the factors and try to factor out the main ones to make a best decision or best forecast for the populace.
Are you able to speak about the effect of, I don't know if we were in an official drought, but it seemed like a very long, arid, dry. What is the effect of going straight from a drought into a period of such heavy rainfall sustained?
Yeah, it reduces the capacity of soil to infiltrate water downwards, vertically. And so what it does is that it just runs off and create flooding. There are several other side effects, as we want to call them, that are caused by drought, one of them being sedimentation. We have to look for sedimentation in the rivers. And that will also affect water utilities' ability to clean the water fast enough for us, depending on the severity of the sedimentation in the river. So there's other factors such as the watersheds. The forests are not able to uptake water, so you have dying forests. We have, with that losing that capacity, basically your ecosystem has a reduced function, which means it reduces every other ecosystem service that it provides to us.
The north and the central is getting excess rain, but what about the south? Is it getting its normal amount of rain?
In the south, based on our river levels, we have the Kendall, the City River, and the Seboon River in the central area right now that are of concern. More so the Seboon River because it's been reaching bankful and exceeding the banks for quite some days now. And with continued rainfall, not necessarily only from Belize, but with the upcoming rainfall that we see, that will pose another issue because we're having a hurricane on top of flooding. And so it just compounds the situation.
The situation with the water level at the dams, have that been set?
I haven't really looked at the dam data right now, but I'm just back in office. So I came rested to address and be fresh to deal with what's happening right now. But the data that I looked at this morning, we don't see any issues on our end. Now, on the generation end, that's a bit more a question for Fortis.
Mr. Mendes, I know that we've all heard, but I gather also that there seems to be a great deal of anxiety among Belizeans as we look at how this system is impacting our brothers and sisters in the Eastern Caribbean. What do we say to Belizeans today, perhaps those living in low-lying flood-prone areas, and then Belizeans at large that are looking on and concerned about what they're seeing in the Eastern Caribbean as this system makes its way west?
Like I said, the importance of seeing what's happening and preparing is critical. Unlike our brothers in the Caribbean, we do have a few more days to go. So we have been given that benefit of continuing our preparations. For those people who live in low-lying areas, and you know that if you know you're living in an area that is flooded normally, if we get excess rainfall from this event, you know that this is going to be affecting you. So you need to know what, make those preparations, and so prepare your home, start to prepare, if you need to seek shelter, know where you're going to be going. If you are living on the islands, you know it's an area that there's a potential that this may impact you. Start to leave on your own. It can get very difficult if you wait for too long. If you wait till the last minute, you may not get space on a boat if there is an evacuation that is required. So it is really important to take these steps now and take them early and really just keep in communication with the Met Service, with NEMO, listen to the advisors and listen to all the information coming out, but use that information and take action.
It's very expensive for most people to get prepared for storms. At what point should people start to say, okay, we'll have to find this money and spend it? That's number one. And number two, the press release yesterday mentioned price gouging, which I know is very hard to police, very hard to enforce. But what would be your exhortation to the retailers out there and your warning to them about price gouging?
Okay, and the answer to the first question, we will take our advice from the Met Service. We don't want to tell people to do these things now, but we will be ensuring that we give enough notice based on everything we receive from the Met Service and what we're seeing from the advisories coming out from them. We want to provide people with as much information as possible and timely information, and so we will be ensuring that this is done within enough and adequate time. Yes. Well, of course, we want to be very careful with what we're giving and the information we're sharing. We don't want to overly alarm, but at the same time, we don't want to not give you enough information, and so it will be coming out. Well, I would tell you that, even in normal rain, this area floods. What I will tell you is you need to have a plan to leave and go somewhere else in case this comes nearby.
Price gouging, sorry.
In terms of the price gouging, it's really important to keep an eye on this. We know there's potential for this to happen. Like you said, it's something that needs to be policed, and it's something that the government really will have to keep an eye on to ensure that we're protecting people. So there's no advantage being taken off as we as a country start to make those preparations. And so whenever we find that out, of course, the information that needs to be taken up the necessary channels for action.
Yeah, but so if I see price gouging, if I'm a victim of it, or those in the public who are victims of it, is there any recourse, any measures they can take?
Send it, provide that information to us at NEMO so we can do the necessary investigations.
Is there a NEMO hotline for people to call who have, issues that they need to deal with during an emergency?
Yes, 936, call 936, that's the NEMO hotline.
So I want to ask, what do you say to all the concerns of citizens, particularly those who may not be in a financial position to begin preparations, not today or maybe not Wednesday?
Well, first of all, our call to the general populace is be prepared, don't panic. The general feeling is that we want to go into panic. There are many persons that are following these images on social media. And for us at the ministry, we are prioritizing the provision of timely and official information to every single Belizean. And this is the reason why we are going to be having our daily updates 7:30 a.m. every morning. As to the question, Vijay, we know that in these times, many families that are vulnerable, economically vulnerable, have challenges. And so we are asking to follow the information. Do not go out and spend your money before the time, because we know that many times this happens, and then families run into economic challenges, and hurricane does not impact the way that they expected. And so we're saying once again, follow the information. And also we know that NEMO is there to assist in dire situations as it relates to food, as it relates to shelter. All of these services are available through NEMO at the district level, as well as at the national level. I want to emphasize that we are NEMO. Many persons think there is one person making all the decisions, one person making all the preparations. All of us have an important role to play in the different phases, including preparation, the response, and the recovery. And so it's very important for us to highlight that every single Belizean must be prepared. They must know what to do when the hurricane is hitting, as well as how the recovery will take place.
Are you all able to see Chief Met, I'm very aware again, little knowledge in the hands of a fool. But I just want a clear, I'm seeing this, the water temperature degrees for today in our area, which is one of these buoys that they have over there. It says 85 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So how would that compare to what would have pertained maybe, and perhaps you don't have the empirical data, but maybe 10 or 20, how far a deviation is this from the norm is my first question. Second, could you speak about our general imaging or satellite preparedness in terms of radar, etc., and our buoys that we have as well? So the two things.
Well, to answer your last question first, we don't have buoys. We do have a network of weather stations onshore and offshore. Currently, we don't have any buoys, but we are working on getting more information on the marine space as well, so certainly something to look forward for in the future. In terms of the comparison of the water temperature to normal, as I mentioned before, most of the Caribbean and the Atlantic are at least 1 or 2 degrees Celsius above normal, so that 85 that you're referring to is perhaps about 1 or so degrees Celsius above what normally would be. It would be at this time of the year. And again, the reason why we have the potential for these systems to intensify.
Okay, and then I ask you about the state of radars, imaging, etc.
Certainly, the radar is working quite well. We have been utilizing it during the season to monitor the rainfall so far. We do have it functioning, and we do expect it to be functioning during the hurricane that is approaching. In terms of satellite imagery, we don't have, of course, satellites of our own. Those come from NASA, and they're available, of course, on the internet, so anybody can go and see them, and that's what we utilize as well. But as I said in my first part of your question, we do also have a network of weather stations across the country that we rely on to get real-time information whenever there's any system. It doesn't have to be a hurricane, any excessive rainfall event, we are monitoring in real time. And that data is available to the public. So I take this opportunity to tell the Belizean public that we have a website. It is nms.gov.bz. You can go on our front page, you will see the radar imagery. You will see a map of Belize with a lot of dots across it. Those are weather stations that are recording in real time. So certainly, it is there for the public and, of course, for us to use.
Jules, just a minute. We're going to be taking 2 more questions, and then we'll get back to our important work.
Sure.
From memory, I would say no. I would have to go through the data, though, to verify if that is true.
Seeing a hurricane impacting Belize that has taken sort of a similar path, and can we recall if there is any, what sort of impact did that make?
I will not get into that question. It creates, it's a bad question to answer we don't like to do that kind of analogy because then people will say, okay, it's going to be equal to that hurricane, and the impact may be different. So I don't want to entertain that.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you so much for your time. The information will be continuous tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Join us for live streaming, and of course, we will be allowing some time to take your questions. So thank you very much.